Okay, 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 okay. Oh, that'll do. I'm sure that'll do. That's probably it. Hang on. Hang on. Okay, alright. We're in. We know what we're doing. We're a professional, completely at ease and in need of a beer, I think, straight off this evening, if that's okay. Do let me know that you can hear me in the chat. Oh, just make sure my microphone is loud enough. I can always bring it closer to myself, which I will do anyway. There we go, because I know there's a great deal of variation in level of sound out there, and I wouldn't like anyone to miss anything, at least on my behalf. So how are we all doing this evening? My name's Robin. This is Molten Chat. It's an amalgamation of Molten Music Technology, Molten Modular, Molten Meditation, Molten Motion, Molten mucking about with synthesizers and stuff. The idea, for those who've never been here before, you're very, very welcome, is that we chat about, well, potentially, I mean, we start off with this idea of chatting about the month's news, the music technology that we saw this week, the synths, the modular, the audio interfaces, the software, the bits and pieces, that kind of stuff. We get into deep and delicate conversations and discussions about the intricate workings of these extraordinary pieces of equipment. We sometimes do that. Sometimes we just sort of take the piss out of each other, really, or find something really knotty to work on, to talk about, for me to rant about. Well, I try not to rant too much. I try to present interesting and intelligent conversation and information on things. Sometimes we make some music, have a fiddle with some gear. That's always a possibility. I do have something wired in. So we do a bit of that if you like. That sounds great over here. I don't know how that sounds your way. Oh, I haven't checked. I could have just been speaking to myself. Hang on. Don't spill the beer. Oh, damn it. I was going to spill the beer. Now you've ruined it. So is this going to sit here all right? Because I can't see it because of my microphone. Why did I think that was a good idea? I'm sure I've done this before. Maybe I have it over here. Shall I move it? What do you think? I don't know. Possibly. Hang on. Just going to have a reshuffle. Oops. So if I... Hang on. Ooh. Ah! Put that there, right. Put that there. Is that going to be better if I put that there? Right. Trying to be able to see my surface that's got the chat on, yeah? Are you with me? Good, good, good. So, how are we doing? I've already said hello to a couple of people. Ken and Andrew, good to see you always first in the door. See, which is nice to see. It's going to wobble. Do I care? No, I don't care. Oh gosh, that's better. Cornish Ways, good to see you. Culture Ghosts, lovely to see you. Exorb, Steve, good to see you. Ian, Madcap, Camden Dogs. I love a bit of Camden, me. NTO Steve, British Green Sound System, always good to have you here, sir. Wagoo, hey, lovely. Oh, Rob, AM Synths in the house, as the young people say, or used to say when I was young. Snap on the beer, good. Well, it's because it's on offer at Tesco's, isn't it? I mean, that's ultimately the reason of our beer choices, is purely down to Tesco's delivery availability and cheapness. That's what I find. So, for instance, although I've got the haze, that's from last week's, I've got the gamma ray this week because that was on special. Oh, I'm such a connoisseur of all things. Arto, and first time here, hi, good to see you, mate. Thanks for stopping by, Ratcatcher. Are you wearing your pyjamas? Oh, no. Molten beer, no. Oh yeah, I should put my deck saver on the mixer. That's what I should do so I don't get beer in it. Hi, Mr. Watford, Mr. Glendinning. Good. Pete. Bastian. Lovely. Zach. Great. Good to have you all here. So what should we do? Well, let me tell you about my day. Well, my time seems to be at the moment taken up with shipping kids around the place. Shipping kids, getting older, wanting to do things, going here, there and everywhere. It's just a nightmare. Don't know what we're supposed to do with all of that. I didn't sign up for that. I don't know what I signed up for. I don't know if I signed up for anything. But hey, it is what it is. So I spend a lot of time ferrying people about at the moment. But today I did get to go all the way over to North Pickenham, where I'm from, over my home church over there, and I got to play guitar alongside my dad on the organ, which is something that we do from time to time and have done since I was about 12, 13 maybe. When we first did it, it was when I first got into synths, because my dad had this little Technics keyboard, which enticed me into actually starting to learn about music. I mean, I'd done piano lessons and stuff, but it had never really thrilled me. But it got this electric organ, electric home keyboard, automatic accompaniment on the left hand, brass stabs on the top, or a pan flute kind of lead. Fantastic. I loved all of that. So after a bit of time, I started playing that alongside Dad playing the piano in church on a Sunday morning. And I mean, this is 80s. Excuse me, this is 80s synth pop Christian worship music. Using all the old 1970s choruses, you know, a little bit of Mission Praise thrown in. Oh, wow, we were way ahead of our time. But eventually I moved on to guitar because they were my dad's synths. I couldn't take them away with me when I left home, so I took a guitar, got myself a guitar and learned to play that, and then have been playing that alongside ever since. And that's all right, because taking synths about the place is far too much of a faff, really. I mean, let's face it, it's much easier as a guitarist, I would say. So anyway, that was my morning, and on top of that we went up the tower, which was pretty nice. I haven't done that since I was a kid, but we climbed up the tower and scared the life out of ourselves going through all the cobwebs. It was a bit like it was less Indiana Jones, more National Treasure, I think. That kind of thing. And going up the steps right to the top, could see all over the village. Fantastic. That's the stuff, eh? But then we had to get back quick, so I had to pick up one of the kids from somewhere else. You know, that's just how it goes. And then here we are. So here we are. What would you like to talk about? I have mentioned the Synth Library. We'll come to that. I'm worried about that cable. I'm going to do something bad with that. We will talk about that certainly, and I'm absolutely open to any questions of any kind, of any sort. Anything that gets us talking about stuff is good, and I'll try to get to everyone's question as best I can. You're very welcome to ask away, and I'll do my best to answer. And as I say, if there's a lull, I can go back to this. That's enough, I think, don't you? Oh, it's still going. When a night one is Spurs. You know, I don't think I've ever played that. We used to sing it at school, but I think something in my head tells me I dug it out a few years ago just for that kind of nostalgia. Yeah, no, it's mostly Graham Kendrick, I think, today, because yeah, we're right on the bleeding edge, right at the bleeding edge of about 1980 or 93, perhaps. Hi Grace, good to see you. Hi Mr. Grumpy. Nuts on the road. What? No, you can't hate sliding nuts. No. Sliding nuts are there to bring joy, because the problem I find with threaded nuts, though everyone likes them and I have a mixture of both, is that what they do is they make you unscrew everything. You go, you know what? I just really like that to be over there. The whole lot has to come out, all of it. Whereas with threaded nuts, some of it has to come out. And then, okay, sure, you might spend half an hour going shuffling nuts past modules. And then you spend another half an hour trying to line it up with the hole. Get in there, get in there. So yeah, all right, I can see the challenges of threaded nuts, but I mean the of sliding nuts, but at least you don't have to take everything out, is what I'm saying. You can get everything in there loosely, and then you can shuffle them around to exactly where you want to be, and I find that useful, particularly as someone who's taken stuff in and out a lot. So this, for instance, this is all sliding, and that's mostly good. I like that. Whereas with the other stuff, you have to just end up with a great big gaping hole all the time. So I would say that both have their challenges, is what I'm saying. What are some great budget Eurorack modules looking to add utility to a Behringer Neutron? Good question, El Monto. What does everybody think? Hey, there's someone over in Twitch. Quick, there's someone over in Twitch. We've got to be cool because we're on Twitch. I don't know what that means. So that's nice. Good to see a solid BPM. You're very, very welcome. Go and grab a bunch of people and bring them over. That's what I would say. Pretend that we're doing a gaming stream. And I'm some kind of avatar. That would be great. Yeah, definitely. What am I answering? No one in particular. Good quality budget stuff. Dotefer is always your first port of call. Now, Dotefer's website is pretty scary. It makes you think, oh, I don't know anything. What is all this stuff? None of it has a decent name. It's all lettered and numbered, and it all looks about the same. And some of it, I mean, particularly if they're sort of illustrations as opposed to photos, they don't look that great. However, in real life, I've got one right here. In real life, they're really actually nice. They're very solid, very straightforward. Usually what they're trying to do is something that you want to do, so they're full of utility, and there's a massive range of them. So Dotefer's always a good place to look. But like I say, you might get lost or slightly befuddled on the website. You're probably better off looking on something like Modular Grid and looking at the modules there and seeing what you think. But there's some really great stuff there. But I mean, if you've got a Neutron, what would you add to that? So assuming you've got some kind of semi-modular synthesizer, what's the best thing to add? I mean, an easy one would be effects. So you could add like an interesting delay, or an interesting reverb, some crackly distortion. Those sorts of things would be useful, and they don't have to be too expensive. Otherwise, I guess for that you'd either start adding in more modulation or probably alternatives. So add another oscillator to run with it, another filter to run in parallel or to run separately or to switch between. That tends to be, because a semi-modular synth tends to be very self-contained, it has everything it needs. It doesn't really need more. So to expand it, you need to think about doubling up to give you more chances for difference. For instance, another oscillator could also be used to audio rate modulate the heck out of the Neutron. That might be fun. So a VCO would give you added modulation as well as tonal possibilities. So yeah, a bit of that. But if somebody said about having a sample and hold or a randomizer or a Turing machine, something like that, having a quantizer is excellent. Funny enough, I've just been playing with the Dofer A156 here, which I've had for a long time because I needed just another quantizer, and because it's good and cheap, I went for it. Although it's not very flashy, but I'm actually finding it to be pretty sweet, because it's just got, it's probably got a manual that tells you what all these bits do, but me just fiddling about, it just essentially chromatically quantizes. But you've got a switch for minor or major, and then for a chord you can add a sixth or a seventh. And so stick it into like a minor seventh, and it just sounds beautiful. It just picks out just the right sort of notes. I find that great. Andrew, if you want a maths, you can borrow one. Borrow one from the library, mate. That's the idea. Yeah, the maths is a good option because it can be a number of things and you can understand it at different levels. So for instance, you could see it purely as just a couple of envelopes, and it's really good at just the simple, the Bing envelopes, you know, the rise and fall, not having to muck about with all this ADSR nonsense, just a straightforward blip. That's all you want, and it's got two of those, does that really well. Or you can cycle it into an LFO, so you've got a pair of LFOs. If that's all you use a maths for, it's worth it. It's worth it just for that. You know, there's lots of other stuff it can do, weird stuff it can do. But just for those two functions, as an envelope and a pair of LFOs, it's great. It's useful. Useful every day of the week. Will I be reviewing them Evil Behringer Space Effects modules? I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, they look desperately disappointing, which is the main problem. Like, there's no CV at all. It's just an input and output and an effect. You know, that seems wrong. It seems wrong to have that in Eurorack. I guess it's no different than having a pedal, sticking a pedal somewhere that you're just using, and actually thinking about it. How often do I get in with CV into an effect? But then I'd like the option, you know, rather than just turning it on. And also, just to turn something on, it's a bit chunky for that. It's quite a wide module. I mean, the effects unit I use the most is the Pico DSP, and that's tiny. It's only, is it 3 HP? Could be. It's an annoying size anyway. It's the one that always leaves you with 1 HP knocking around. And that sounds brilliant. So for something which is not controllable or interactable with, to have it at that sort of size, it's just, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's Behringer, isn't it? There's no knowing. There doesn't appear to be a plan. There doesn't appear to be any sort of plan. And that's a shame. I think, I mean, gosh darn it. I mean, if I owned massive Chinese factories that could produce anything at all, I would just have this awesome plan. I'd lay it all out. You know, what we're going to do, right? We're going to build this entire modular system because I have the capability. I'm going to put all these things together. It's going to have this wonderful flowing like graphics going across all of the different face plates because we can do that, because we're awesome. You know, put it together in some kind of cohesive system like they did with their, you know, they kicked off all right. They kicked off with the Moog clones. What am I talking about? Moog and the System 100. You know, both good ideas, decent ideas. They could have gone as far as providing some help with how they all worked. That would have been nice, but hey, you know, there are old duffers out there who remember that old stuff who can probably help you out if you've bought a System 100 system. So that was good. The 2500 as well, which I've got sitting over there. Beautiful. Yeah, nice. These other ones they've done, they just seem to be completely random. I mean, there's the obvious ones because they're mostly they're mostly inspired by mutable instruments and taking on those sorts of things, which is fine. Plenty of people do. It's just that, you know, if I had a factory with all of that capability, with all of that experience and all of those people working on these things, I would just do something interesting. That's all. And have a plan. You know, put together a system. A couple of oscillators, a couple of interesting filters, some interesting modulation. Not somebody else's modulator, our modulator. You know, you could own it. This is the thing that gets up my nose with Behringer all the time. They could completely, you know, take hold of and revolutionise rather than just mess us about. They could really, you know, be awesome. And you know, they sometimes are. Sure, they sometimes are. But they could be all the time if they wanted. They just don't want to, as far as I know. And they get up my nose because they don't tell the truth. And I find that really annoying too. I don't know why they do that. I don't know what they have to gain from it. It's almost like they wish to create an environment around themselves of suspicion of anything else, of the existing synthesizer community. They kind of want to build their own one and have it separate and cast aspersions and doubt on absolutely anybody else. I mean, I ventured. I mean, I was very, very brave. I don't mean to go on about this. I'll try to move on in a minute. But I was super brave this week because I actually entered into a Facebook discussion on the Behringer, one of the Behringer forums, because they were just not telling the truth, and I find that really, that just gets to me, you know. And sometimes I just have to go, I have to set this straight, and of course that's never actually going to work or going to happen, and funnily enough no one really noticed. So what they were saying basically, that they were asking people if they thought there was any, what was it? They were asking people whether they thought magazines or news websites were of any use to anybody anymore. Are they trustworthy as far as sources of information? And someone had put about how they trust Sound on Sound and Sonic State and places like that, and how they think they're great. And Behringer popped in and said, oh, you know that they don't review our gear because we don't buy advertising with them. Which was to suggest, well, not even more than suggest, was to absolutely say that Sound on Sound will only review you if you buy advertising, and Sonic State will give you a good review if you buy advertising, so that these reviews can be bought. And it's just not true. I don't know where. I mean, Behringer must have had an experience with a particular, with a publication at some point where this was a possibility, or that it was suggested to them that if they place adverts that they would get a favourable review. I guess that must have happened. But what they then do then is they push that about with everybody, and that's simply not the case. No one I've ever worked with has ever suggested that that's the way magazines work. And in my reviews, it's not the case. I have nothing to do with the marketing or advertising department when I'm writing reviews, so there's no connection between that. The only reason why Behringer doesn't get more reviews is because it doesn't send any gear out. It doesn't send them in. So, for instance, I've done Behringer reviews on modules that I own because they wouldn't send them in. Now they had little trials. They did every now and again. They've been persuaded to send something in, and then it gets a review. And I did that with the TD3MO. I don't think they liked my review particularly. So it's not that, and I thought it was a good, reasonable, relatively positive review. So it's not that, it's nothing to do with advertising. It's nothing to do with them paying anybody anything. And also with the TD3MO, they wanted it back, so I sent it back. So I didn't even get to keep the gear. So they can't even use the, they just want free gear angle, because that didn't work either. See? So it's so disingenuous. It drives me nuts. Anyway, so I just sort of said, well, actually, I don't think that's true. And, you don't have to pay for advertising. Clearly you don't, because you don't pay for advertising and yet you still get reviewed. In fact, you don't send stuff in and you still get reviewed. So it's just a nonsense. And I just find that it gets to me sometimes. But I need to back off and unplug, because I think that would also help. So, Mr. Behringer, Uli, if you're out there, because I know obviously you listen to my rantings every month, no doubt, that all you got to do is send it in. That's just how the game works, if you like. Send something in, because we're not going to seek out stuff to review. We've got so much stuff to review. If you'd like to get a relatively expert, give your products a going over, then that's all. That's all you have to do. No advertising required. So, and the funny thing is that you also pointed out a couple of other YouTubers who you said, oh yeah, these people are awesome. Well, because they review your stuff. But funnily enough, they actually do reviews for money, or they do demos for money. So it's the reverse. So the ones that you are praising are the ones that you have actually paid to do the demo. Can you see why this frustrates me so greatly? But anyway, I'm not a knight of the internet. I'm not there to solve everybody's problems ultimately. But every now and again, it just gets so up my nose, I have to go, blah. So that's the thing. It's enough. I mean, as an example, my next review for Sound on Sound is this. Now, they've sent one to everyone, but I don't believe they've paid for any advertising. But they're going to get a review in Sound on Sound magazine because they sent one in. It's that simple, and it's very much a Behringer type product. That's all they did. They just sent it in. They didn't pay me anything. There we go. So there you go. That'll be a lesson to you. I don't understand. I just don't understand why they have to be less than truthful. I don't get what they're trying to achieve. It just makes people suspicious and angry at each other. And I've had, I mean, on my Molten Monthly, I mentioned Behringer, and I spoke about them. I poked some fun at them, and I pointed out a few things that I thought they were cool. And I had a couple of people going, "Oh, what are you slagging off Behringer?" And it's like, well, I'm not. I'm just pointing out some funny things that they did, pointing out some good things that they did. That's kind of my job. But it creates this us and them situation which doesn't need to be there. You know, I've got Behringer stuff. Anyway, we keep going on and on about it. Well, that's I guess we should talk about something else. So anyway, that's my vibe on that right now. Yeah, I mean, the thing with the interesting thing with the Donna is that they've been on at me for a little while to review the original, and I sort of said, nah, I don't really have the time at the minute. And then they came back to me recently because they've got a firmware update which is sort of introduces a song mode or something, some nice additions, and they're again on to me about doing a video review. And I just really feel that there's 100 videos out there on it that are good and show every single work, and there's absolutely nothing that I can add, I don't think, to that. It would be, I mean, on one hand, I because it's cheap, I believe it would be a popular video, and it would probably get lots of views. It's just not that interesting because so many other people have already done it, to me. So I turned them down. But funnily enough, it's come to me anyway because of Sound on Sound want a written review. And that's completely different. I don't mind doing a written review because that's a little bit more unique. That's a little bit more interesting and deep and thoughtful. So, yeah, I'm actually well into doing that. That's the plan. Anyway, so yes, I've been talking now for a little while. Let me have a sip of beer and just see what people were saying. Yeah, you see, there you see, like you're supposed to know what I'm talking about. So yeah, the difficulty with having to rely on reviews because of the lack of music shops these days. I mean, there are still some, of course there are, thankfully, they are still about, but it can be difficult to get to them. So what you probably need is some place where you could borrow a synthesizer. What an interesting idea. How would that work? How would that work indeed? Am I going to Synthfest in October? Yes, certainly am. Hi Rob, how you doing? Yeah. My beer is currently cold. I've got another one which is a bit warmer, but this one came straight out of the fridge. Thank you very much for asking. Do I have any favourite reverb delay pedals? Reverb delay pedals? That's 2 pedals that came out recently. No, I don't. I don't keep up with that kind of thing. I do have, I mean, when I got the Big 6 mixer, it gave me an opportunity to plug in a couple of these sort of posh pedals that I've had knocking around. One is the Microcosm, which I think I started to get a little bit under the skin of and thought, oh, there is actually something in there that might be interesting, because it had baffled me. Excuse me. I get the feeling that Hologram sent one of those to pretty much everybody, because I saw it a lot. But there was only like 1 or 2 videos of people actually showing you what it did, because it was a bit of a weird one. Never quite sure what was happening, what was going on, was it doing anything? I don't know. Anyway, so I found a useful setting when I was routing it through the Big 6, which was great. The other thing I used was an IK pedal that they sent me that I hadn't really tried out, and I'm just using that for reverb on Ascend. So both of those things have been great, but I haven't explored them. I've just kind of turned them on and allowed them to exist. But otherwise, I mean, there's some fantastic pedals out there. There's a oh heck, what are they called? Oh, God damn it! There's there's this pedal company that makes these beautiful pedals that I want to keep mentioning, just on the off chance that they might suddenly go, hey, he's really cool, he keeps talking about our stuff, we should send in them. They called Vengo. See, I can't remember now, and that's just stupid. That makes me forget. But anyway, that woman, the harp lady, she did a demo of them that was just brilliant. What's her name? God, I'm losing my mind. Emily lady. She's fantastic. She does all her demos with her harp. She's just fantastic, going through pedals and bits and pieces. What's it called? They had just this most beautiful marketing video of all these sort of little strange sort of stop motion mushrooms and stuff bouncing around. Anyway, they did a fantastic delay pedal, and that's something that I'd really like to get into and get time with at some point in the future. Vongon, thank you, Wagyu. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. That's the one. Yeah, there's an ultra shear, and there's this wonderful delay thing they do. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the new Boss Space Echo does look interesting. Emily Hopkins, thank you. Yeah, she's awesome. She's very good. Yay, Twitch. Good to see you. Yeah, all the Strymon stuff is good. That probably goes without saying, I suppose. Eventide also do some interesting bits and pieces, but honestly, I don't have my ear to the ground on that. Now, however, the Eventide delay module and the Strymon Magneto will be available through the Synth Library. Da, da, da. No, Von Gone, not Vogan, Vogon. Your what was it? I can't remember. I used to be able to recite Vogon poetry. Your Murgles are to me like painted Zergons of Electron 3 or something. I can't remember. losing it. Yes. Vongon. Yeah, Vongon was definitely it. Yeah, Microcosm is a weird one because, as you say, it does seem to be an expensive, very, very posh pedal that no one can quite work out exactly what it's supposed to be doing. But we all know that it's awesome. It's a bit like the Empress effects thing. You know, a lot of stuff going on, fantastic, but heck, it takes a little bit of getting into. Library bus, yeah. See, that's a nice idea. Oh, I'll talk a bit about the Synth Library. As heck, I'm here to talk about things. Does it really matter? It's been a long journey of thought, and every step across the way, it usually ends up going, no, it's never going to work. So I'm kind of in a situation where I'm kind of trying to force it into being because it could work. It could work, but it can't be as quite as gloriously free and hippie as I'd initially kind of hoped it would be. But there we go. The other flip side is that it could actually be a way of improving my situation to allow me to do more video making, etc., that sort of thing. So I have to see it really as a potential stream of revenue, which also hopefully massively gives back to a community, you know, which is ultimately what I've been trying to do, because it just comes from, you know, I'm sitting here and I can see synths and MIDI controllers and modular and stuff on the floor, modular bits and pieces here, there and everywhere that I don't have the time to use or the inclination to use necessarily. And it's good, you know, it's good stuff. All of it you could go and make little synths with and have a great time with it. but I've only got so many hours in the day, and I need to focus on the things I can genuinely focus on. And so as a reviewer, I've got this swelling shed of gear, not posh gear. Nobody's sending me profits to review or anything like that, you know, just small, simple stuff. And it's just, it increasingly annoys me that they are sitting there and no one is using them, because people could be using them. So I think about, okay, well, maybe I could take them to some kind of school, but that's really, really difficult. Maybe I can donate them to charity. Yeah, but will anybody actually know what it is that they're getting? And I don't want them to be wasted, if you know what I mean. Could I use them in some kind of educational situation? You know, take them to a school, as I say. Well, possibly, but there's so much red tape and bureaucracy around that. And teachers, to be honest, have got enough on their plate without trying to accommodate an idiot like me trying to teach Eurorack to a bunch of disinterested teenagers. So, I don't know. So sort of giving them away in that regard didn't ever seem to be a decent idea. So then I thought about, well, okay, well, maybe I could have like a pop-up shop in Norwich, and like once a month, just in an empty unit somewhere, do a pop-up molten modular shop where I could take a load of stuff, people could come, they could borrow it and take it away for a month, and then bring it back the following month when I do the pop-up shop again, and then, you know, carry it on like that. Some kind of, you know, a lending library that appears. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. But then the questions of security come in, the questions of people just running off with your stuff. How do you do that? Do you charge for it? Do you not? I mean, there's this Synth Library in New York, which does it very much in a community-focused sort of way, as I understand it. I mean, I've reached out to them, but they've never responded to my inquiries, sadly. So I've never worked out exactly how they do it. But yeah, being within a massive city, that would work. You know, I mean, if I was in London, then it could potentially work, assuming that I had the space in which to do it. If you can only work out how to make sure people bring stuff back, you know, that's the tricky thing. I mean, I was thinking about taking photos of the person with the piece of gear, you know, that sort of thing. I mean, otherwise it's money and deposits and that kind of thing. Tricky. But ultimately I thought, going into Norwich to do that, it's going to end up being expensive. It's going to cost a load of money. I'm then going to have to take stuff in. If somebody turns up to pick up something before the person who last had it has brought it back, then that's a problem. And I'm going to have time to test it in between, to check it out, you know. So there's lots of logistical issues with trying to do it in some kind of shop, pop-up shop library situation. Mobile library, it's a brilliant idea. On a bus, fantastic. Except someone's going to steal the bus, aren't they? Or break into it and steal all the stuff. So the amount of sort of labour involved in doing all of that, I kind of felt difficult. So that put me back into the situation of thinking, well, maybe I can just send stuff out, you know, maybe that's the best way to do it. Which brings us to then how does it pay for itself? How does it work itself out? How again do people not just run off with the gear? Because some of these things are expensive. You know, it's £500 modules, and you don't just, you know, I don't want to lend the Decar's voice to somebody and then never have it come back. That would be tragic, very, very tragic. So yeah, I mean, I'm still chewing on that a little bit. But the idea that I've come up with, that I'm going with at the moment, is that the Synth Library will require, well, essentially have two requirements. It will have a subscription requirement, because it has to pay for itself. I can't put, you know, 2-3 days of work into boxing stuff out and sending stuff out and paying for the deliveries and the returns and all that kind of thing. I can't do that for free. I can't. It's just not possible. If that was the case, then I just can't do it. Sadly, I need all the time I can get. So the idea of doing it is not to remove more time from myself. So it has to be a workable thing. It has to be a workable thing. So the only way I've thought of doing that is to have it as a subscription, like La Film, if anybody ever used to do that. Or, I mean, many years ago, I used to be part of a club to get in television games. where you pay the subscription and every month they send you a new Intellivision cartridge, you plug that in and play that with a month and send it back and they send you another one. That kind of thing. So it's that kind of old school hardware subscription. That's the idea. And that seemed to be workable. I mean, I'd start off with like charging £2.50, I thought, and then thought, well, I'm going to need about 1,000 people in order to make it worthwhile. So again, it just can't work like that. So it has to be a sizable amount of money, sadly. But that's just the way it has to work. I don't see any other way around it. And I think what I'm figuring into it is that if it's successful, if I can get a decent number of people, then the price could actually come down in the future, you know. It depends. We'll just have to sort of look at it. And then when it comes to the security side of it, the idea of people sending their own module in, so that's the idea. So I said it was two things. Yes. So first of all, the subscription, you pay a monthly subscription, which means you could potentially every month have a module, although obviously you can renew a loan of something and have it for a longer period of time. That's fine. So there's the subscription side of it, and then there's the fact that you have to donate a module or synth to the library. Now that's a brilliant idea for a few reasons. One reason being that it involves us all in the ownership of that library. So there'll be part of you in that, and other people will be borrowing your stuff and enjoying that, and you'll have that sense of pushing out into the world and being part of a community. It's a beautiful thing. You know, I really like that, as well as us being able to hold on to something of yours of value. So that, to me, to some degree, it works, at least in my head. I mean, obviously, you could send in a crappy little module and run off with an expensive one. You know, that is possible. And there's no way, I don't think, that you can do something like this without a large element of risk. There will always be risk involved. There will always be some horrible person who runs off with it, or someone who just gets themselves into trouble and suddenly has to, for whatever reason, is no longer in their place, or has to leave home, or, you know, it gets lost, it gets eaten by a dog or something. You know, there are lots of different ways that could mean that module is lost. And so that's just something that has to factor in. And again, it's a reason why there has to be money flowing through the system in order to account for those kinds of losses, as well as dealing with difficulties and the time it takes and the packaging and all that kind of rigmarole. So it has to be a proper thing. But ultimately, if you're paying, I mean, I've toyed with the money up and down, you know, all over the place, and at the moment I've settled on 40 quid as the subscription, which seems like a lot, but it really sort of isn't. Because even at that sort of level, I'm going to need 10 people to make it kind of worthwhile. If you see what I mean. But within that, I'm trying to work out exactly how delivery is going to work. So I'm kind of figuring in, because what would be the best solution would be that when you borrow something, I'll send it to you, and the cost of that delivery, of that courier tracked insured delivery, will be part of the subscription. And then I'm thinking, I think I will also include a returns label, which includes the return, so that I can track it in both directions. There's no chance of someone going, oh yeah, I put it in second class post, so, you know, it might turn up in a week, kind of thing. So I could cut that level out and have that all included in that price. And that's probably, the delivery to and from is going to be £10. That's always a factor. So so, you know, that's included within that price, I suppose. So then you're looking at kind of 30 quid a month. So if you're borrowing a 200, 300 pound module, then, or every month, then essentially you're getting access to thousands of pounds worth of stuff for 30 quid a month. Does that sound crazy or nuts? I don't know. But that's my current thinking on it. Let me catch up with the commentary. Miterations on a Lurgid bee. Thank you, Tony. I could hear the sounds in my head. I just couldn't articulate the actual words. Just see if I don't. You're welcome to get the cockerel any time, mate. See, I don't want to see it as renting. That's the thing. I mean, it is, obviously. But, I mean, because I did think about renting, properly renting. But that to me means flight casing up synths, you know. And then paying an arm and a leg to get them sent around the place. And then asking for like £1,000 deposit. You know, that's not it. It can't be that. So it has to be different to that. So I don't like to see it as renting. It may well be the absolute definition of renting. I don't know, but it's not how I'd like to see it. I very much like to see it as lending and borrowing, but obviously money's involved. So how can I say it's borrowing? Like I say, you're subscribing to the idea of membership to a thing, and then you're borrowing things that membership allows you to access. Is that a better way of putting it? Is that just semantics? I'm just, you know, it has to sound more of a community thing because it's important, I think. Because the other thing is that if someone does run off with something, then I have a connection to that person through Patreon and through email and social media and bits and pieces. And so I think that connection is important, and I think that will reduce the potential for people running off with stuff. Because ultimately I can sit here and I can read off a list every month of the people who have let us down this month. People who have let us down are this person is you know, Wagyu's let us down this month. You know, Andrew, he's let us down. Ian, you've all let us down by not sending your stuff back. Shame on you. You know, and there's an element of that which could be used to keep people in line. Maybe, I don't know. Flip side is this might end up being my entire life. And I'll still have no time to do anything else. I mean, that's a possibility also. The swelling shed. Yes, it is a good one. Yeah, I mean, there is another impetus behind it is to give people access to gear that they couldn't otherwise afford, and that's where it grates a little bit, because I'd love to be able to do that for free properly, and I can't. So I need to get over that, and I need to see it as, I mean, would someone who's starting out be prepared to pay a subscription to get access to one piece of gear at a time in order to help them get started? Oh, yeah, that doesn't sound that great. However, I mentioned about the Erica Synths box, which is this fella here. I mean, this is £600 worth of modular, I suppose, but you know, they sent it to me, so I didn't actually have to purchase this one. And so in that regards, its value is less to me, I suppose. But hey, I mean, I built the bloody thing, so it has a certain amount of significance to me. But to have someone, because you know, it doesn't have to be a lifetime subscription. So someone could come to the Synth Library, pay 40 quid, and borrow this for a month. They have to send me something, as I say. They could send me their, I don't know, they got an old Boss drum machine or something. Send that in, and they could borrow this for a month and see what they think. I mean, that sounds pretty good, you know. And they can stop subscribing once they've got this, play with it, send it back. They don't have to put any more in. I can then send their thing back once it comes back off loan. You know, so you think about it in those terms, that's pretty awesome. And what I plan to do is to put together a couple of others of this sort of thing, put together a modular synth voice of some kind, you know, out of bits and bobs, and make those available too. You know, if it starts to pick up, that's definitely what I'll do. And I think that has a lot going for it. I mean, similarly, you could borrow a TD3, and you could borrow the Donna B1 if they let me keep that, you know. And you could potentially borrow more than one thing at a time. So for instance, I've got all 4 of the Roland little aria things. You could borrow all 4 of those for a month. You know, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? So it just depends on how you look at it, I think. It's really interesting. Because sometimes when I feel I'm talking about it, it just sounds like, oh, it's just too expensive and silly. But then on the other hand, having talked about it now, this sounds really exciting. I'm really quite excited about the idea that people could borrow a proper synth and have a play with it. I mean, the other thing with this one in particular, I'm going to make like a 5-patch YouTube video about it. You know, how to patch it up in 5 different ways so that people can get started with it. I think that would be good. Might even start writing little patch books for all sorts of bits and pieces. You know, again, it depends on how interesting it becomes and how much of my time it takes and how much it becomes something which is worthwhile for me to put more and more time into, if you see what I mean. Because at the moment, I just don't know. At the moment, the response has been mild, to say the least. So maybe I've got some work to do in explaining it and offering it up. And obviously people have to get to hear about it. That's the other thing. But I mean, heck, if we could get 10 people who were into it, that would supply the grease with which I could really spend, you know, a significant amount of time on it. You see? And as it grows, it just gets better because people want to send stuff in. I mean, hopefully manufacturers will see it as a useful place to, you know, send me 1 or 2 of everything of theirs, you know. That wouldn't be a bad thing, would it? Oh, I'll just put that down there. So, are you seeing it? Yeah, Rob, that's another good idea. Why not have a library not as a place where people take things away, but as a place where people rent time with the gear you have in your location? Yeah, that's an idea. Now, however, I was part of, I was at Turnkey when we put together the Analog Museum there. And, you know, it was this space down in the basement of Turnkey that was filled with analog synths, classic stuff. We took a saw to a Prophet 5 and other bits and pieces and packed them all into this onto walls in this area, and you could rent it, and hardly anybody did. I mean, and that was in a massive music shop in the centre of London. So while the idea of people coming to use the stuff is solid, exactly what would be available in that space, how would people use it, where would that space be, how expensive would that be to have as a space, would I need to be there in order to keep everything working, and then heck, how much would you charge for all of that? Yeah, I'd have to sort of maintain a working studio. I know plenty of people who have run studios and have, you know, it tends to last for a few years and then they just sell everything and go, this is just too much like hard work. So it's a beautiful ideal. I just don't think it's a workable thing. And also, I mean, I'm out in the sticks. I mean, if I lived in Norwich, I think it would be different. But I am definitely disadvantaged by my location. Or the other alternative is that because obviously I live in the countryside, therefore I have a barn. No, I don't. But if one did have a barn, or I mean, the other end of my shed, I could convert that into some kind of accommodation, and then, you know, Queen could come and book that out and hatch their new synth album on it. Yeah. I just need to scale it down a little bit. Need to think a little bit smaller. You know, little synths, sending out little modules and stuff. That's where it has to start from. And I really like this idea of these modules making their way around the country, you know. I mean, one of the thoughts I had was that rather than sending the module back, you send it on to the next person who has requested it in the library. That would be potentially possible. And that would save a whole process of it coming back to me, of me rebadging it, sending it back out again. You know, that would save a lot of time potentially and money potentially, but they would also introduce this idea of someone receiving a module from someone and it doesn't work, and whose fault is that, and it hasn't been tested in between, and so is it actually less hassle for me to get it back, test it, approve it, send it back out, you know. These are all the sorts of things you have to think about. Yeah, modular ice cream van. Loan the time, not the gear. Yeah. But that's what makes it different, you see. There's lots of studios you can go and rent time in. This is something different. Evidently, I'm too idealistic. So £10 a month doesn't seem too much, says Art. No, that's for just for the delivery. Oh, there's a synth library in Portland. Use a website called My Turn. Oh, I was going to... Hey, I can share, because, I mean, it's only a work in progress. Let me see if I can remember what the heck it's called. Oh, mine was a lending engine. Yeah, lending engine. Hang on. Ba 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 ba. One second. Not that. I thought it was that. Ba, ba, ba. Where's my logo gone? Hang on, just trying to find you a link. Oh, it is that. Right, okay. So look, I'm going to stick a link in the chat. And this is a link to the current synth library. Because I've got like 150 products up there. I got one of my kids to start photographing things and sticking the data up. So I've kind of fleshed out the general idea and that kind of thing on there, and you can have a browse. I think you can have a browse of what's up there so far. Obviously lots more stuff to come. It's not complete. There's no point trying to register, that won't work, or log in, that won't work either. But by all means, have a look, have a browse, and see what you think, and you can ask me questions about it. So I'll stick that in the chat as I carry on through. If I got to the bottom of this, oh, I think I might as well. No, I didn't. Well, hang on. Risks. Oops, something went wrong. Try loading the page, did it? Da-ba-da. Surely the companies that make this stuff could do this. It's just difficult. It's logistics. And I mean, when I think about trying to deal with customer service, that just fills me with horror. And that's not really the vibe I'm going for. I feel like it can only work in a, well, I use the term relaxed and groovy a lot, which I think is quite important, quite key. It's like if this is being a customer and a business owner customer relationship, no, that's not interesting to me. That's not what I'm trying to achieve. The idea really is, I've got a shitload of stuff, right, that it'd be great if you could borrow. It would be great also if this shitload of stuff enabled me to finance more videos. So is there some way that I can monetize all this stuff that I've got so that other people can really benefit from it? It gets use, people get to make music, it's an awesome thing, and it helps support me in my video making and music technology endeavors. You know, all of that together as a thing. It's not a business, it's not customer service. You're not a customer who's moaning because you didn't get thing the day before you're supposed to get something. No, I'm not interested in that. You know, you'll get something more or less every month, more or less, and if you don't send it back on the right day, I'm not going to panic and cancel your membership. You know, at the same time as you shouldn't be up in arms if you don't get something the day you thought you'd get it. You know, it just has to be relaxed and groovy. You get it? So all of these things have to work together. This has to be the most unique experiment that's ever been experimented with. I mean, there's other things as well I've thought about, like, do I sign my name across the front panel of every single module so that it's impossible to sell? But when doing that, it makes the thing look rubbish. Do I put a sticker on it? Do I sign the back of it? You know, lots of thoughts of that. I mean, that also makes it kind of individual, and it could show, if you put it on Instagram, hey, look, he's borrowed something from the Molten Synth Library. How cool is that, you could say. I don't know. I also thought about using, those banana nuts that Bafako do, like a strange colour of banana nut, put that on maybe the output of everything so that every module has those on it so you can spot them in videos. Maybe that's a simpler, less destructive way to stamp a module. Or I could use some kind of stamp on the front, but again, that's potentially ruining something. And would that make it more or less valuable if you then tried to sell it on? Landlord of modular. So yeah, Steve says, would you lose 40 quid if you bought something and then sold it if it was not for you? Probably by not much. Possibly. Yeah. But I guess what I'm offering is a much simpler way, more streamlined way of doing that. So you could stack up like 6 modules, and every month you'll get that one. Send it back, you get the next one. Send it back, you get another one. So you'd have your wish list, and you're not having to go through the palaver of buying something at a shop and having to go through the shame, if you like, of returning something and the hassle of that. You know, it would be in a bit more of a relaxed, and we're doing this on purpose kind of way. But yeah, I get what you're saying. That certainly is a thing. It is a factor. But yeah, I mean, I guess the idea here is that you're not having to have a wodge of cash. You're not having to have 300 quid to spare in order to buy something and then get your money back on it. It's the fact that you know, you could borrow something for 3 months and then stop subscribing, and then the next time you're interested in something, subscribe again and then stop subscribing. You know, there's lots of ways of doing it. It doesn't have to be a perpetual load of money going out. But I mean, it's always going to come down to that. I mean, I'm not absolutely not blind to the fact that it's not a tenner, because a tenner would be a no-brainer, but a tenner would be impossible because the delivery, the postage costs would cost that at the very least, you know. So, you know, that's not going to do it. And I'd have to have 100 people to be making £1,000 in order to give it to give it, what, 4 or 5 days of my time. And it would be a lot of work for £10 a pop. You know, I have to value my time correctly. Now, lovely as it would be to do it cheaply, to do it really, really cheaply, the amount of work, physical work, going to the post office, labelling things up, you know, unless you've worked in retail and warehousing, you'll have no idea how much work that can be. You know, it's not just a simple throwaway thing. Anyway, still talking about it. Yeah, so NTO Steve asks how it would work to keep it longer than a month. Well, the idea would be that you can renew it. So I mean, I'm still trying to understand the lending software. This is, I tried lots of different ones, and this is the one that seems to be the closest to what I'm after. So the way that the website works is that you register essentially. So the process would be you register on Patreon. You sign up to a tier. So Patreon handles all of the money. So I don't have to have a merchant account and other weird stuff going on, bank charges and that kind of thing. It's just going to be a Patreon tier. So you sign up for a particular tier on Patreon, and that deals with the money side of things. Patreon gets its cut, but there's nothing I can do about that. There's always going to be banking fees in there somewhere, but that seems to me like a really good way of connecting with people. So it's not only are you getting access to the Synth Library, you're getting access to other advantages of being a patron, which whatever they are, and being part of the community. You know, it's hopefully a positive thing. So that's that side of it. So how it would work is that you then get, I'd issue you with a login for the website. You go to the website and you reserve the thing that you want. The usual lending time is like 30 days, although it'll be like 25 days with like a 5-day changeover period. I think it will probably work like that. So after you've had it for 25 days, you then start getting reminders to send it back, because we need to have a couple of days within all that happens before the next one goes out, that kind of thing. So it would work in that kind of cycle. Now, if somebody else wants the thing that you've got, then they can reserve it, and you would have to send it back. If no one has reserved it, then you can keep it for another month if you renew it. Now, if there's a particular thing that you want to desperately keep longer than that, then perhaps I can work that so that you can book it out for 2 months at the beginning. I mean, that's definitely a worthwhile thing to look into. So the way that it works in terms of what you can what you can take, what you can borrow, is that I've sort of introduced this credit system. Because again, I'm trying to work out, because different things have different values. And maybe there's a tier structure that I could do where if you're going to take something that's really more expensive, then you probably have to pay more. So through working on that and working out how best to do that, I came up with this sort of credit idea, so that the cheapest, simplest modules are like 5 credits, 5 molten dollars, 5 credits, let's say. Regular stuff are 10 credits, more expensive stuff are 20 credits, and I know super uber stuff are 30 credits. And so if you buy a standard tier subscription, you'll get 10 credits a month, which you can use then to borrow 2 utilities or 1 regular thing, or you can save up credits and get something more spectacular. Or you could subscribe to a higher tier, pay more money, and get more credits to start with. And so that way, if you want to borrow all the poshest stuff, you will actually have to pay more. Does that make sense? And that way, using that kind of credit system, it means you could borrow, rather than just borrow 1 thing, you could borrow 2 things or 3 things, depending on what it is and how you're subscribing to stuff. That seemed like a way of allowing people to take more than 1 thing. Because, I mean, if you're starting out in modular and you just take an oscillator, there's not a whole lot you can do with that, you know. So that was my thinking behind that. That's why the stuff on the website has credits alongside it. That's sort of the idea that I'm working with at the moment. Yeah, so with people who might really like modular, don't know anything about it, this is what I mean about having like a lone modular system. So I would produce some videos on it showing you how to patch it. It's very much like, I mean, Erica Synths are just doing this whole bullfrog thing with, you know, an educational semi-modular synthesizer, which they are using to do workshops on and to teach modular, which is brilliant. So it's kind of a little bit like that, where with the Erica Synths DIY one, it's a built modular system, completely modular, there's no normalization at all. It would ship with some patch sheets. I would do a video on it explaining how to do it, so it gives you an opportunity to start off exploring modular with a little bit of guidance just to get you going. So that I think is the idea. And from that point, you can decide whether, wow, this is something I really like to buy. I want to buy something else, blah, blah, blah. And then you can start borrowing other modules to add to your system, to try it out and see what you think. See? I'll take a Timberwolf. Yeah, but VCV Rack isn't the experience. That's the thing. It's not. And I don't think that's it. I think sending people to a piece of software to say, hey, this is modular, try that out. That's never going to do it. There's nothing about VCV Rack that inspires me to make music. I think it's a fantastic piece of software, don't get me wrong, fantastic, and I've seen some marvellous stuff doing it with it, but I can't use it for more than 5 minutes without getting really frustrated and annoyed with it. So, while again I understand that is a good way to poke people towards modular, there's nothing quite like having a modular synth in your hands to play with. And it's also, I mean, that's only one aspect. The loaner, only one person could borrow it at a time at the moment. So that's just one aspect. The rest of it is people who have modular systems who would just like to try out that weird eventide thing, or would like to try out the black sequencer, or would like to try out a Castor and Pollux VCO, or the function junction, or, you know, would like to know what it's like to use a maths, to use a Behringer Brains, for heaven's sake. You know, that's the idea. And you know, there's something about the nature and size of modular modules that's kind of the only thing that it really works with. That this idea could really work with. Bigger synths, no, not so much really. The little synths, I thought they were quite a nice idea because it would broaden the idea, and if someone could borrow like the West Pest or the East Beast, that seemed like a reasonable thing to try, and it's not going to cost too much to ship. It's less likely to get damaged, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, no, I don't want to do a VCV Rack course because I can't stand spending time with that software. £500 bond. You see, I think that makes it too much. I'd much rather people sent in something so that they had a piece of themselves in the library. I think that's a more interesting idea than just sending us money. I mean, heck, I could make that an option. The downside being that I'd have to have that money stuck somewhere, and I don't like that idea at all. That's the sort of thing that I end up accidentally buying something with. No, I don't know if that's a good idea. Martin Synth Museum met a similar fate, says Rob. Amazing gear, yeah. Yeah. Could I not link up with a normal library? I don't know. How would you do that? What would that look like? How would you man it? How would anyone in the library have any idea about what any of this stuff is? Could you pop up in a library? Could I pop up in the forum in Norwich and do it that way? But again, that's a whole... That comes back to that problem of me using up a load of time and having to take everything with me, unload it, load it up, having people turn up before the thing that they wanted came back, you know. I mean, to have a pop-up shop in Norwich where people could just come, where I just come and, yeah, this is Molten Modular, and I have a load of stuff out and people can come and play. Yeah, I'm very much into that. I just don't really know how to make that happen. You know, I would, that would be, in some ways, that would be a delight to have a Saturday or a Sunday where I take a load of modular and synthesizers down and people can just play. That's that has potential, and little places in Norwich, lots of little shops that would be wonderful if they had modular in the window twinking and bleeping away. I think that would be fantastic. Yeah, particularly in the Royal Arcade, something like that, or down the lanes. There's some great places that would really work in. But you know, I don't have the money for renting a shop, and you know, I don't have the first. You know, who do you call? I just don't know. I just don't know how that works. I mean, you can rent the forum. There's different areas of the forum you can rent, because I looked into that for when doing the whole Synth East. But I don't know how you... I don't know. It seems like a really big commitment of my time and effort just to give a handful of people an interesting idea. Like I say, I'm into it. I mean, that's what Synth East essentially became. You know, that was the idea behind that, to put a load of work in and give people a nice time. You know, I'm into that. I'm proven that I'm into that. But I don't know. I don't know. A Facebook group. Some tangible history on Facebook. Yeah, possibly. But yeah, that's kind of what the Patreon thing is about, really. Is that, you know, there's Patreon, there's a Discord that's associated with that. That's the Synth Library community should hopefully operate through that. Swizzle circuits. Yeah, okay, cut to the chase. That's brilliant. You like the sincerity. It's a noble pursuit, but it's not going to work out. You know, I suspect that. I do suspect that. But it's interesting at the moment. It's rolling around in my head as a really interesting idea, and I'd just like to see if it could fly. But also through these sorts of conversations and talking to people, maybe there's a way of it evolving into something that would work. You know, how do we do that? Yeah, I'm not sure that the Deckard's voice would actually be part of it. Will there be laminated library cards? Well, I mean, there's lots of different levels to how lovely it could be. You know, as in, you could open the box when you receive it. So here's the box opening experience for the user. So you'd receive it in the post by a lovely post person who would have not trashed it or broken it or put it in your recycling bin or left it outside in the rain. So all of those things are a given. It will be presented to you nicely. You'll open the box and it will go boom, and there'll be a little sort of spray of confetti going, congratulations, thank you ever so much for borrowing this this module. And then inside the box there'll be a card showing you who's borrowed it so far, with a date and a tick, and it'll have a testing sheet in there with the ticks and who tested it, that kind of thing. It'll have some patch ideas. It'll have a little notebook that's like a journal, so that everyone who's borrowed the module could write their little story about the adventures they had with this module, and so a little diagram, that kind of thing. Probably all the back's been ripped up for using roaches, and you can take photos and stick that in there. There'd be a little bag of sweets, some patch cables, some knurlies, stickers, all this stuff. And then also in there will be the module that's been thoroughly disinfected. It smells beautiful of rose petals, and no rack rash or anything of that nature, and it will work beautifully as soon as you plug it in and make beautiful music. I mean, that's the idea. Yeah, also in there will be your returns label, and somehow undoing the packaging, when you put it back in, the packaging will just do itself all back up again. It will be perfect. Stick the sticker on it and send it back. That's how it's going to work. And it's a beautiful thing, you know. And every time somebody sends it back, all of the knurlies will go back in the box. You know, all of the paperwork, the stickers, the tick boxes, the power cable, all of that, of course, naturally will go straight back in the box and be sent on to the next one. And that would be perfect. It's part of it's because the UK doesn't have a very good sale or return culture. Another good question. I would say it doesn't, but I think that's changed. I think I'm of a slightly older generation for whom there's still a lot of shame involved in returning something. Now, so for instance, if I buy something, the idea of returning it just fills me with absolute horror. I don't want to go through that. I don't have to phone a customer service or try to get a returns label. Now, I understand that that is a functional thing. And that's also why Amazon, I think, surprises the heck out of people like me, because you phone them up and say, because you got something, you just don't quite like it, and you're trying to think of a reason, and they just say, oh, just send it back. And sometimes they say, don't even send it back, I'll just refund you. And you go, what? How is that even possible? I'm racked with guilt here that I bought something that I thought did something, and it now doesn't do the thing that I thought it did, or it's a little bit broken or something. And you're just like refunding my money. That seems crazy. So yeah, I think there is an element of that. And so the idea that you just buy something, try it out, and then send it back and get a full refund, excuse me, that is a little bit alien, I think, to British people. The other thing I would say is I think that's really desperately rude to small-time manufacturers, because I mean, okay, if you're buying from Amazon, whatever, who gives a monkeys? But if you're buying from, I don't know, a local modular place, some guy who's hand building his modules, and you've ordered a £200 module from him that he's put together, soldered together, packaged up, sent to you with a couple of sweets, and you've opened it up, tried it out, and then sent it back. And it's like, but I just spent 3 days building this thing. I make about £5 on it. All said and done, and you've sent it back for what reason? So I think particularly in a small niche industry like modular, the idea of expecting to be able to try something out and send it back for a refund, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's how it should be. I think if there's a genuine problem, if it's broken or you are completely out of your mind and got the wrong thing, then swapping it for something else, yes. But just buying something from a small firm and expecting a refund, I don't think that's right. I don't like that. I don't think that's a culture we should support. Whereas something like this, would work brilliantly. Apple AirTags. Yeah, there are many pitfalls, Steve. I'm not saying there aren't. So another good thought, Jeff, is that if everyone donates a module, they're only going to donate something they don't like. Yes, that's a possibility. But I don't exactly know how to fix that. I think the only way you can sort of push back against that is by just presenting it as an idea that it's a place worth putting an interesting module into. I mean, you're bound to end up with modules that you don't use very much, and I mean, there's no reason why you can't send us one for 6 months and then swap it for a different one. We're very relaxed. Very relaxed and groovy about these sorts of things. I think that's completely okay. But yeah, of course, we could just end up with a load of rubbish that nobody wants. Yeah, that's true. And it may just be that the same modules get borrowed all the time, and we kind of fight over a small number. But again, I mean, I think if that's an interesting thing, and if the library itself is essentially paying for itself and making money, then there's no reason why the library can't buy more modules. So if everybody just wants to borrow a Descartes voice, then heck, it could buy another Descartes voice and have 2 of them. That's definitely a possibility. Because also, if I have modules that nobody's really using, then maybe I just need to sell those on, and they could, raise some cash for buying more modules. So there's lots of ways that it can go. But I mean, a lot of people who I've spoken to about it so far have been really interested in the idea of sending something in for people to borrow. And I kind of feel that manufacturers would be up for it. You know, they're releasing a new module. They might send one to me to do a video on, and then it can go straight into the library and people can borrow it. I mean, that's pretty groovy, particularly if they send me two, if they're likely to carry on using it. So, you know, that's quite interesting, isn't it? So, I mean, that's why I'm kind of the only person who could do this. I mean, I know there are other reviewers out there. I mean, Bo Beats, heck, he could have Sweden tied up. I mean, DivKid could do this, that kind of thing, very much. But so there's a number of us, perhaps, but very few of us. So let's say someone like myself is the only person who can do this because we have access potentially to a line of free modules, or a continually building and expanding module that's not going to cost a load of money to add to. Do you see what I mean? So I'm sort of, the cost of the module is me making a video on it, or doing a build video on it, that kind of thing. Do you see? Do you see? Yeah. No, I understand that dealing with people can be a pain, you know, and that's the thing that I fear the most, really, is people just not being relaxed and groovy. You have to be relaxed and groovy. It's going to be, I mean, I've got to write a terms and conditions, and one of the things is that you do have to be relaxed and groovy, you know, otherwise it's not going to work, and I can send you your module back and you can go on your way. I mean, that's the thing that I have, because this is a membership. Oh, I mean, I don't know, maybe I get myself into trouble here, but because it's a membership, I don't have to have anybody in it at all. You know, if somebody messes me about or gives me a funny look, I can deny them membership, can't I? Can I do that, or am I legally obliged to open it up to anybody? I mean, obviously I'm not talking about rejecting someone for their race or religion or that kind of thing, but if they're a dick, then I can have a clause, no dicks, in the terms and conditions, you know. I'm not obliged to, or am I? I don't know, I'd probably have to look that up, wouldn't I? Molten crypto. Does sound like an awful lot of work. Maybe. Well, this is kind of, I don't know. I mean, you just don't know, do you, ultimately? Is it going to be a load of work? Probably. I don't know, but again, if it's paying for itself, because ultimately I sell my time in whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it's writing, whether it's videos, reviews and such like, I'm essentially selling my time. So if running the, so I would try to get the Synth Library to run on a cycle, so that like 2 to 3 days every month is when I'm working on it, and the rest of the time people are enjoying their modules. Then it's like frenetic activity for a couple of days a month. And that's okay. There's other things that I do that are very much like that. A couple of days a month, I'm on this because I need to get that done in this cycle, and boom, that's done. Great, on to the next thing. Like, you know, like my Studio One column in Sound on Sound. You know, that's something which I have to work out for a couple of days, and then it's done every month. So if I could get it into a cycle like that, then it seems possible. I mean, if I'm dealing with 10 boxes, 10 coming in, 10 going out, over a space of a few days, that's totally achievable. Now, if that was 50 boxes, how much harder would that be? Would I start not testing them when they come back and just send them back out again? I don't know. But hey, if I was doing 50 boxes a month, that would be what, $2,000 a month? Coming in revenue. So, you know, that could easily be a week, and that would be great, you know. But I wouldn't want it to be taken up any more than a week. Otherwise I'm never going to get any of the other stuff done that I want to do. But then by then the plan would probably be to farm it out to somebody else. I get my kids to do it for pocket money. That's always the way. Yeah, Ratcatcher says that 1 year from now, the only thing left in the shed will be the lawnmower. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry to people who are not in the UK. Oh, get in touch with the Raspberry Pi shop. Okay, interesting idea. I think, yeah, custom stuff, DIY stuff for the library would be fine. Yes. As long as it's not going to burn anybody's house down, I think that would be completely fine. Yeah, Deckard's Dream's not going anywhere. Yeah, see, MM7 Wub, Anima Radio Womble, that's a great name, says he'd be interested in sending something to the library. Yeah, that's precisely it. That's exactly it. A few other people have said that to me, that they'd be more than happy to send me a couple of modules. And that's the vibe, man. That's absolutely it. That's why it could work, is because I think it would capture people's imagination and could be a really good marketing tool for manufacturers, you know? It really could. Yeah. So Waggo talking about how much people have contributed via Patreon. Yeah, but it kind of means that you have to have been there quite a while to build up the credit to some degree. And also that's a lot of monitoring from my point of view. You know, it's an idea. Will the modules be demagnetized? No, I've no idea. Do you want them demagnetized? The important thing is that everyone will smell of cigarette smoke for no reason, because I don't smoke, but it's just what happens. I'll make sure I'll collect little bits of air. In fact, every time a module comes back, the air in the packaging will be tested for various chemicals. Residue. Oh dear. Yeah, Norwich just really isn't big enough. Communal modular, that kind of thing. I mean, there's the Synth Club, God bless them, in Norwich, struggles to get more than a couple of people along. You know, it's difficult. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what it would achieve. I could, as I say, I could certainly turn up somewhere. There are maker spaces. There's a man's shed or whatever it's called, and other arts places that I could turn up at with a bunch of modular, but I'm not sure, as I say, what that would achieve exactly, other than being a curiosity for people. And that's fine. That's what Synths is for. Again, as I come back to that, really. Will they go through sanitation? Yeah, I mean, I'll have to think about that. Probably. I should probably squirt them, wipe them, test them. Probably should do all that sort of thing. I think that's a good idea. That's the other side of, rather than having people send them on to the next person, have them to always come back through me. You know, I mean, it makes my job harder, but it probably puts people's minds at ease a little bit. And again, also to make sure that it works. I'll have to keep on doing that. You know, it is going to be work. It's not something that is, you know, this is a blinding idea. I could just take a load of money off people. That's going to be fantastic. No, you know, it's a job. It will become part of my work. what if you receive the modules in the wrong order? Well, it won't matter what order you get them in, because you'll only get them one at a time. You only get the next one when you send the last one back. So I know in your head you're thinking, I could build a modular synth. No, you can't. Because you can't get the next one until you've sent that one back. See, that's the flaw in your thinking. It's also the flaw in the whole idea. So what you would have to do is get more credits, so that first thing that you borrow, you have to borrow for 2 months, so that the second one you can get for a month, and then they overlap. See, it's impossible, isn't it? Because with modular, you might want to build up a whole synth that way, but you can't. But no, what you do, see what this is about, is that you borrow a VCO, or 2 maybe if you've got enough credits, borrow 2, decide which one it is you want to buy. After a month, send it back, buy it. Then you get a couple of VCAs, try them out, see which one you like, buy the one that you like. Not from me, you buy it from a normal shop. Yeah? So that's how it contributes to your building of your synthesizer. You can't have an entire owned massive modular that's all borrowed from me. That can't work, not unless you put in shed loads of money for a shed load of credits, which, I mean, maybe that's the way forward. Erin, you love my oxycoral video, thank you very much. There's a new firmware actually, which your man at Oxy Instruments says has sorted out all of the sort of problems I had with it, really, the sample loading and other bits and pieces. So I mean to go back and have a look, but of course it might be borrowed in the library, so I don't know that I'll get the chance, but I do need to load the new firmware. It's one of those things with what I do, because I have a lot of modules to go through. I don't always get the chance to go back and try things which have improved or that kind of thing. It just depends. I have only a certain amount of time and a certain amount of space, and I need to focus on the things that really sort of interest me. So the Oxy Instruments ones, the coral, I think is interesting. It would take too much attention to work on that as a sound source at the moment, I think. At least that's what I'm thinking. So it's a great thing to put in the library for people to borrow. Would custom built modules be acceptable? Oh, sorry, yeah, same question. Yep, no, got through that. So I'm just catching up through the comments. All subscribers, yes, of course, I have to be vaccinated. Okay, good. Got to the bottom. Right. So, well, that was interesting. It was really interesting to talk it through because, as I say, as you can tell, it's something which is going through my head that feels like a really positive. It could have a positive impact, positive penetration into the modular community potentially. It could be something that 100 people find really, really useful, and that would be brilliant if that's something that can operate and is achievable and is manageable and is not full of idiots. So that's the idea, to bring together interesting people, and maybe it is. I don't know. I'm just going to have to keep talking about it. We might try it out with a few people. You know, so ultimately, if this is something that interests you and you're in the UK, then do pop over to the Patreon and sign up for the £3. Just the £3. You know, think about it. Okay, what you do, you buy me a coffee for £3 for a month, and within the next month, we'll work out how to get you, how to go through the process of you sending me a module, me sorting you out with an account, and me sending you a module back, just to see how that process works. You know, without charging the £40, there's nothing like that. You know, we're just going to throw a little bit of money at it just to try it out, to see how easy it is to send stuff backwards and forwards, how simple that works, whether it's a pain. You know, obviously, you know, we work out whether you're a dick or not at the same time, and see whether I want to continue this relationship, and just to try it out. So I think that is the way forward. Is just to try it out with a few people and see what we think. Obviously, if you think that the £40 down the line is madness, then, you know, there's no point trying. You know, it has to, at some point, it has to become self-supporting, which means paying someone to actually do the work. Yeah, so interesting. Anything else then? What time is it? It's 9:45. Okay, so any other thoughts on anything else? I'll be fascinated to hear about. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I need to think about on things coming up. From my point of view, I mean, heck, it's the it's the middle of summer holidays. I'm going to be going away to Italy, would you believe, into the fire, as it were, in a week or so. So it's going to be a little bit of a slow month, August, but I should get a few things done with a bit of luck. But in terms of modules that I'm working on next, I've just done a review on the acronym, but that was for Sound on Sound magazine, so I won't be doing a video review, because the way that it works is if Sound on Sound send me something, then the review should appear in Sound on Sound first before I do anything else with that. I mean, maybe do a sound demo, like I did a sound demo on it, and I think that's fine. But in terms of doing a review on a module or a synth like the Donna one, Sound on Sound gets it first because it's them that arranged it and sent it to me. So, yeah, so I've done that already. I'm not going to be doing anything more on that. I do have the Vino Echo over here, which is causing that rather lovely delay, which was a DIY project that I built on Friday. So I just need to edit that video down and do a little bit of demo on it. But that's a cool little module. I really enjoyed, or I'm enjoying starting to learn about that and use that. So that's cool. I've got the Elmira 2 to build. I think that's going to be my next build, which I want to do soonish because it's everyone quite likes that, and I want to get in on that bit of that action. So I've got that over there to build. That'll be my next thing. I've got the oscillator as well to do from the Rabbit Hole people, Apollo modular. So that's a couple of kits I want to do. In terms of modular, I've got, can you see any of this over here? It doesn't really matter. I've got the chord pilot. Now, if you were listening to if you saw my Big 6 review, I suddenly got a whole load of stuff out of the chord pilot. It'd been completely baffling me for a little while. So I kept looking at it and then putting it down, looking at it, putting it down. I thought, I just don't know what I'm doing. And then I seemed to have a bit of a breakthrough, and I was able to get it to play a whole load of different chords, you know, like on purpose. So I'm suddenly inspired to go back to it and try to really understand it and work that out and do a video on it. I think that would be good. And also Nobler are just about to send me their the piano one, their new piano module. So that should be turning up soon. I'd like to do that. I've got the 3 body here, which is scaring the life out of me, that I need to do something on, definitely. I also have the Modbap Trinity, which at the moment I'm not really vibing with. I've tried a couple of times to do a video on it, and it's not really, I can't seem to connect with it at the moment, but I'm going to give that some more time, because it's certainly interesting. I just tend to find myself going back to the Mandrake, which again I'd like to do a video on the Mandrake bass drum, and to Zaps. I tend to fall back onto them once I've got frustrated with the Trinity not making the sort of sounds that I hoped it would. So I have that. I have some error instrument stuff to play with, which I haven't got to any depth with. I've got the Qubit Nautilus to do that I must do. Bastel are going to send me their Basil, their delay, which is cool. I'd like to have a play with that. Interestingly, the Aikido, their VCA, I'm not gelling with that either. It's weird how some things you just go, oh yeah, no problem, sorted, playing with that, know exactly what I'm doing, and other things just get a little bit too hard. For some reason, I can't work out what the inputs and outputs are. I can't work out what things are doing. Whereas the Veils, like I've got one here, absolutely joyful to use. Simple, I know exactly what's going on with that. Isn't that interesting? I find that fascinating. So, lots of bits. I've also got that weird eventide thing, the Misha. I need to do something with that. I want to do a review on the ASQ1 before it goes out in the Synth Library. Lots. And I've got the Night Rider here, the RYK modular Night Rider. Need to get into that. So I have lots, many things to play with, many things to do videos on, and the 2500. And I've got this marvellous video on 1U I want to do. So plenty on. Got plenty on. Plenty on. Plenty on. SQ1 or the bigger SQ64. If you just want a simple, decent single line sequencer, then the SQ1 is excellent. The SQ64, the Korg one, is in some ways complicated and doesn't always do what you think it does. But it does have a lot going on. I mean, I've done 2 videos on it quite in depth. So there's a lot going on in there. If that does what you need, then that's brilliant. But it's not as immediate or instant as something like the SQ1, I would say. On my desk that's laser cut wood. Do you mean this one? This is a Moog 104 HP case. That's not laser cut. I don't have anything else like that around here. So that's the only one with wooden sides. These are the Bafaco cases. This one and this one. This is just a 1U, not a 1U, 104 HP single rack thingamajig. Which is good. It's at a good angle. I mean, I've got 6 of these, although actually 2 of them are Behringer ones. Oh, but I've got so I've got 4 of the Moog ones, 2 Behringer ones that are all in racks over there, which look brilliant in those 3-tier racks. That's why I used to have these 3-tier racks. It's really interesting how that's evolved, and now I really like this whole thing of this being on this arm. It swings in and out, moves about. I think that's brilliant. Having 2 of them, I really like the synergy of that. But I mean, something I'm trying to do at the moment, or one of my next projects, is I want to be able to do a gig with just a single one of these. So my aim is to build a gig rig, so enough to do 15-20 minutes is in my head, in a single case. That's the plan. So if I can do that, then I can be a bit more mobile. I can stick it in a bag, stick it on my back, go on my motorbike to get to the EMOM and that kind of thing. Because it's really, I'm struggling to get to either Synth Club or EMOM at the moment because I can't get there. They're just on the wrong nights, and I've got kids to get to different places. And if I could go on my bike, which I can't do if I'm taking my dual rack brute thing, but if I could go on the bike, it would make things far more versatile. And I'd also like to do some trips out and play modular with a battery, that kind of thing. I think that would be very cool. So that's my plan, to somehow bring it down to a single case. I think that's really hard. But I've seen people do it. I mean, I'm thinking at the moment a single case plus like a MIDI controller. Maybe I could get away with doing that. So Mr. Grumpy's asking, the best modular version of the sequencer part of the subharmonicon. I don't have a subharmonicon, so I don't know what that does. Isn't it got those small sort of 2-channel 4-step sequencers? Is that right? See, I don't know. I mean, sequencer that's split in two, the M185 from RYK is a good option, and that's interesting. It's got the whole business with different numbered gates. That's quite a fascinating sequencer, but I don't know what it is the subharmonicon does that's any different to anything else. So I'm of no use, I'm afraid. Oh, I had one in the Osiris video. Okay. Are we talking about the same thing? So I've got one behind me. Shuffle, shuffle. This here, are you talking about? Can you see that? Don't know if you can see that. Oh, everything's a little bit of disarray because I had my kid taking photographs of all my modules, so they're all got this weird selection of stuff here. It's like, what on earth are they doing together? But this is a Mother 32 type case. Again, another Moog one. That's kind of what I started off with. But this is, I think, what you're talking about. This thing here, laser cut. Now this, I did a video on their cases. They sent me a bunch. Now, I can't remember what they're called, which is terrible. But I've got the ARP 2500 is all in one over there. I've got a few other bits knocking around. Some sort of stand up, like 3 sections or 2 sections and 1 section at the top. Good stuff. This is just a really useful kind of boat-sized one that's useful and knocking around, that I put stuff into for testing at times. And if you search on my channel for cases, I guess you'll probably see them. I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head, but that's probably what you're talking about. That's going to fall through the gap in the hole in the middle. Qubit Bloom. God, dear oh Lord. I saw somebody recommending that the other day. Oh no, somebody was saying, yeah, I think I'm buying a Qubit Bloom. Do everyone think that's a good sequencer? I was like going, no, there's no one who understands how to use it. No one. Nobody out there knows how to do it. Qubit keep doing little tutorials on it and everyone is still completely baffled. I'm no clearer as to what the heck is going on with that thing. So yeah, you're welcome to borrow it, obviously. The Cosmix Pro is a great little mixer. I haven't actually tried one, but I have absolute confidence in their stuff. It's great. I like the spec. Everything about it is really good. I wish it had 2 aux sends, is all I'd say. Wow, 2 Hermods. That's impressive. Yeah, it's a Jasper stand in the back. That was a bloody good investment, that was. I've just had little synths knocking about the place, getting broken. I still do have a little bit of that going on. And so I thought I really must sort this out. And it was brilliant, totally brilliant. And it doesn't mean I use them any more than I did with them knocking about the place, but the potential is there. They're not wired in or anything, so when I go to use one, I tend to take it off the stand and put it down here and play with it. But yeah, the Jasper stand is excellent. It's hard work putting it together. It's got quite a weird system of adjusting those arms on it, but ultimately it does exactly what it says that it should. Yeah, Jeff, I use the SQ64 from time to time. It's just not, you have to get into it. It's not, I struggle with it to start with every time, but then after a little while it's like, oh yeah, I understand how this works again now. So something like the SQ1s, you know, they're a piece of piss straight away. You can understand what's going on with that. So it's a little bit, you have to get under the surface of the 64 to really start understanding it. But if it's your only sequencer, again, I suffer from having too many choices and trying too many different things out. But if it's your only one, it will probably work really well. Yeah, the Blood Cells Domix is a good alternative. Yeah, that looks great. Cool. Well, I mean, I'll just finish my beer, shall I? And then, I don't know. I don't have anything patched in any sensible way. I mean, evidently everything appears to be patched, but I couldn't tell you exactly why or what that's doing. But I could try to get something going a little bit. Only post fader. Okay. Yeah, give yourself a good lot of time to assemble the Jaspers, I would say. So, ugh. Doop-a-doo. It's a bit loud. Sorry. Oh, I got a spider coming down. Get off my mixer. Let's see if I can accidentally bring in some drums or something. I know what I need to do. Nothing to do. I don't think that's working. Not going to be a quarter note, is it? I don't know. I don't know the bloody Pams. It's alright, the best of times. I hate sync sometimes. I just don't know what it's doing. So I'd really very much like to use this to run the thing, but then how do I integrate it with Pams? I don't know. I thought I set it to the right thing, but it's getting a sync in from that, but it's not doing anything. not allowing me to do a thing. Hang on, is there a blue button that I've missed? Nah. I don't know, I think that this should be simpler, I always feel. That should be right, sink in there. I'm getting kind of a thing as if to say it would be. But it's not allowing me to hold an arpeggiation. Pain in the arse. I've broken it all together now. Oh no, I've really messed it up. That's a shame. Well then maybe that's, oh see, maybe that's the wrong way around. Maybe I do it like that. Maybe that's it. Then I put that in there. Then it's 110. Okay, maybe that's how you do it. Hey, there we go. Anyone still with me? Oh, there we go. That was fun. I enjoyed that. Thank you very much. That was the acronym oscillator, which is, yeah, it's sort of turning out to be my most favourite of oscillators, I have to say. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of stuff going on with it. It can bring in a lot of levels to itself just purely on a single oscillator, which is nice. And it felt really nice at the end there. It was a bit crap to start with, but hey, I was just sort of feeling my way around. Yeah, that was fun. It's funny that the Mandrake on this particular occasion wasn't sounding quite like how awesome it's been in the past. But also, I've just sort of put the Big 6 mixer back in after I took it out, assuming I was going to have to send it back to SSL. Excuse me. But they said I can hang on to it, so I've had to sort of wire it back in, and I'm not sure that I've done that quite right yet, so I haven't quite settled that in properly at this point. So I had a bit of struggle with some interference on a couple of lines, and need to get my cabling right. But anyway, yes, and also a lot of fun on the Vino Echo. That was producing all sorts of slight weirdness. It's got quite a few features on it that I don't quite yet understand. And it has a second layer as well, where you hold something and move things and other things happen, which is interesting and yet slightly difficult to get into, because then you lose the sense of what the delay layer is doing, if you catch my drift. Anyway, that'll do for now. I think we'd probably time to knock this on the head. Let me just check back through the chat to see whether I've missed anything in particular, anything desperate. Yeah, it found a bit of sync there at some point. It is a particles I have up there. That's probably going to come out. I'll stick it on the library. Other people can give it a go, because I can't seem to understand it. Sadly, I've really wanted to very, very much, and I can't seem to get my head around it. It was a good, fun build though. There's definitely something there. No, you're just having lovely conversations amongst yourselves, and that's completely fine. I definitely approve of all of that. And somebody on Twitter said the other day that ARPs are the worst thing to ever happen to electronic music, which I took exception to that, and suggested that the pattern ARP, which is what I used on this Arturia Keystep 37, is probably the greatest thing that's ever happened to electronic music. You can just stick on a couple of notes and it just sounds fantastic. Well, yeah, you've got to roughly choose some notes which you think might go well together, but then it just does its thing and it's totally brilliant. You know, I don't have to program something in. If I just want to have a fiddle, I just want to play with some sounds, I just go wham and off it goes. I think it's totally brilliant. Brilliant. Anyway, Andrew, wow, you're staying up late, mate. You're usually off by 9:30, aren't you? Good to see you staying to the end. That's fabulous. Good, great. Right, okay, we'll probably call it a night then in that case. Thanks ever so much for staying with us for this stray. I feel like, I don't know, we always manage to talk about something. I'm never quite sure exactly how it's going to go on one of these chat evenings. It is largely influenced by the things you bring to the chat, and also anything that's particularly on my mind. And evidently that my interaction with Berenger was slightly on my mind. So it was good to get that off my chest, I suppose. Good to talk about the Synth Library. I'm sorry if that's not of interest to other people. We went on for a bit of a long, but it's just a fascinating idea. It's the sort of thing that just feels like it really should work, shouldn't it? There has to be a way that it just sort of works, and maybe you just have to have faith in people kind and just let it happen, or it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. So I have to sort of consider how much work I put into it at this point, because I don't know whether it's a goer, if you see what I mean. I don't want to spend weeks and weeks making this perfect system, because it doesn't need to be a perfect online system, because we're just going to be doing it sort of face to face. It's not, while an online system is fine for reserving and checking stuff in and checking stuff out, you know, that's only admin ultimately, and I will be physically packing things in boxes, so I know exactly who things are going to. And I imagine I'm going to be having a bit of a piece of paper, logbook, logging everything in and out by hand. Anyway, it was good to talk about. It's given me some more things to think about. And as I say, if that's interesting to you, then do let me know. Just get in touch, or do the thing via Patreon, whichever way you want to get in touch with me to find out more about it, or to get involved. Then just give us a shout, and that would be great. In the meantime, I'll try to get a couple of videos out this month if I can. Like I say, I'll get the Vino Echo one out. Maybe tomorrow. It's probably going to be the end of the week, because I've got a very quick camping trip in the middle of this week. Otherwise, I'll see how I go. But always good to spend some time with you and to talk to you. And I hope you have a fantastic August. It's starting to rain again now, which is brilliant. And I hope we're all here for the next one. That'd be great. So, cheers for that. Well, that's great, Tom. Thanks. Brilliant. No, Steve, your comments are good, mate. Always good. It's good to think about these things. You know, you asked good, solid questions that do need to be considered. So don't you worry about that, my fella. Great. I'm going to turn the what's it on. So I will see you. That's me coming up. What's it? Where's the other one? What number is it on? Number 8. Number 8. That one. There we go. Super. So yes, I'll see you soon. Thanks for all of that. Let's press the button. Sound of a desk saver.